3, 2, 1.
Boom. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judah Hoover. My friend Johncey Matthews is here in between us, and then over there is Josh Weidman. I am a real estate investor, and I am also a realtor. My contact information is oddly enough kind of over Josh right now. Josh's contact information is right above me, and Josh is a hard money lender and a real estate investor. And we believe two things. Hey, there you go. I love it. We believe two things here on the Build and Grow with Real Estate show. We believe that everybody should be a real estate investor. We think that it is a great way to build and grow and hold and develop wealth. But we also think that there's a lot of great people out there who get their start or get their feet wet by working in the real estate world and then transition into real estate investing. I didn't really know that I wanted to be a real estate investor until I had already been working in the real estate world for a year or two. And then I quit my job and did nothing but work full time for myself for about 2 years. And I found out that that really wasn't good for me. And I've always been a business owner. I've always tried to set up for myself a 9-to-5 job, have an executive role or a consulting role or something that I've got to go to almost every day, or else it's just not as good for me. Our guest today is a gentleman, and Johncey, you've got to help me here. I've known you for like 20 years, and I always screw this up. Is it Matthew singular or Matthews plural?
Just singular. One T, no
Singular.
S. It's the most uncommon way to have Matthew as last name.
And what's crazy here is Johncey. that would have been the easiest thing for me to screw up with your name, but instead I just changed your whole first name before we started. Nothing, no big deal. Sorry about that.
I've dealt with that for 50 years. It's okay.
Nice. I wouldn't have guessed 50, man. I would have guessed you were much. I'm 41. I would have guessed you were much closer to my age, my friend.
No, I'm super old. It's okay. But
Nice.
thank you. That's a
Awesome.
compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so but when it comes to the whole, 9 to 5, Johncey actually has shed his 9 to 5 about 7 years ago now. You've been full time for yourself.
Yep.
That's absolutely awesome, man. And so tell us your background. You grew up in the area.
Judah,
you started working in real estate. Tell me who you are.
I want to tell you something funny, Judah. You probably don't remember this, but I wonder if you remember the first time that we connected. You probably don't.
Oh, I do. I absolutely remember.
I don't think you do, because I'm going to tell you this quick story. It'll take a minute.
It involves a bandit sign.
Oh,
it involves
okay,
a bandit sign.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I was a commercial property manager for Horst Realty, and it's a development company in Manheim Township, and I managed the corporate center there, flex space, office, retail, Class A, nice up there. And I was the manager. The owner called me and said, "Hey, Johncey, there's these awful signs on these telephone poles. You got to get rid of them." So I think I sent somebody, or maybe I got rid of them myself. I said, and I took one of the signs and I called the number on it. And I said, "Hey, whoever this is, you can't be posting these signs here. The owner's complaining. It's we can't have them at all." And here it turned out to be Judah. And had I known it was Judah, I should have had a longer conversation with him. But Judah was super polite, very nice about it. He said, "Hey, no problem." It was no issue with him, and that was my first interaction. But super good guy.
How many times did he ask you if you had any properties to sell when you called?
He didn't ask me that question.
I shouldn't put them up. But do you have anything you got to sell? No. You know anybody that has to sell? You sure about that?
But stupid me, I should have. I've been in real estate for like 5 years. I should have asked Judah, "Hey, how do these signs work? Are they effective?" Because I was trying to get into real estate at the time, and I had a few properties, but I was just in my employee mindset. My boss told me to get rid of the signs. I got rid of the signs. That was it.
Right.
But anyway, so you remember that.
No, I absolutely remember it because you were super cool about it and I was super cool about it. And I probably wouldn't have remembered it if we wouldn't have met like 6 months later, something like that at a conference. You were like, "Hey, I'm that guy who called, remember?"
Right.
Yeah, it was in St. Louis. And man, I miss CRE online court conferences. They
Sure.
they were some of the best. So anyway, like back in the day before Bigger Pockets, like I love how much everyone talks about how, they love Bigger Pockets and everything like that. And I'm like, you young bucks. Back in my day, there was this thing called CRE online. But here's the lesson. Here's the lesson I want to take from that I always took from and that I tell everybody is you should put up bandit signs everywhere. And if they tell you to take them down, politely don't put up bandit signs there again. You know what I mean? And also because then I kind of knew Johncey and knew that neighborhood and also was like, oh, this is kind of a little bit more commercial. Like this isn't something that's really going to fly here as well. I never, ever, ever hung up bandit signs there again because I knew that it just wasn't that I was going to get more flack than calls, but I tried something, I failed, I adjusted, I moved forward. Like that's what you've got to do in real estate. You've got to try, evaluate what happened, notice the results, make some adjustments, move forward. I've always been a big fan of bandit signs. I've always said put them out everywhere. But when people call, don't be a jerk. Apologize. Ask them, just ask them if they're already down or if you need to go take them down or whatever. And most places, Johncey, like because it was you, I never put up there again. Most places I just wait 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, and then just hang them up again, and they don't really notice.
Okay. Or you can change the handwriting.
Right. So Johncey, tell us your background, my friend. How did you get started in real estate? What were you doing?
Why real estate?
Right. Why real estate?
Why real estate?
Let me back up a little bit. Maybe it's kind of a long journey. I'll talk about a couple things quick. Growing up, both my parents are immigrants from India. They moved here. They worked super hard, and they instilled me. They said, you got to go to school, work hard in school, go to college, work hard in college, get a good job, work for the rest of your life, have a family. That was classic American. That's the goal. So I did that, and I got a degree in business. I worked really hard at it. If you would have asked me my senior in college, what do you want to do with your business degree? I mean, I had no idea. I would say, well, I want to work in business. I want to work for a business, a company, a big company, whatever. I had no idea. After college, I ended up getting a job at a small brokerage in Chicago. I lived in Indiana. I moved to Chicago, worked for that job for about 6 or 7 months, and just commission-based.
Like a stockbroker? You say a broker?
Stockbroker, yes. Like it's in the movie Boiler Room. It was a lot like that, much, much less glamorous, but it was just 60 hours of phone work. It was horrible.
Did you get a Lamborghini? Situation. Did they slide the keys across the table and like?
No, I was taking the bus to work. I had no money. I ran out of money in about 7 months. I had to move back home, which was embarrassing, but I lived at home for a year, kind of licked my wounds, got a regular 9-to-5 job at a bank, and just enjoy getting a salary and making some money. Now, that was one of the most boring jobs I've ever had. And it just kind of opened my eyes to, hey, okay, I don't want to be in banking. And so I was still 2 years out of college. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And I wanted to get out of Indiana. So I found out about a nonprofit organization that helped works with low-income people starting small businesses, trying to create self-sufficiency through self-employment. Set up in Lancaster, and I went to that program. I moved to Lancaster and was a full-time volunteer for 2 years. Didn't get a salary, had housing and food provided for me, and I worked full-time with that entrepreneurship program. Now, I didn't know anything about starting a small business, but the program was geared around helping people start small businesses by having volunteer business people teach courses on entrepreneurship, finance, marketing, stuff like that. And so I was just making that happen. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about that job. So you volunteered your time. You got a HUD house while you were volunteering, but that was your compensation essentially. Is that right?
I didn't have it's kind of like Peace Corps, if you want to make a comparison.
Oh, yeah.
They provided housing for me. I lived with 3 other people, and I lived in southeast part of Lancaster City. And so my living expenses were taken care of. I didn't get a paycheck for 2 years. I just worked for that nonprofit. And then
how old were you?
After I was 25 or 26.
Yeah.
So to me, it was kind of like,
this is
to
awesome.
me, it was just kind of a way to give service back and give something back. And, I was blessed to have my college paid for by my parents. Here's a way for me to do something good for somebody else. So I was a volunteer for 2 years, and I stayed on with the program as a full-time employee for 4 more years, working with people, trying to get them to start small businesses, kind of giving them the tools. And to me, you couldn't work in an organization like that for 6 years without kind of having a entrepreneurship seeds planted in you. Like I every year I'm thinking, okay, what kind of business can I get into? What can I do? What kind of small business can I do? What skills do I have? And at some point, I think it was when I needed to find a place to live. I needed to buy a house or rent an apartment. And I thought, now I want to pay somebody rent. I want to buy a place. And I had some money saved up because I had lived at home that 1 year, and looked all around the city, and I found a 2-unit, and we settled. That was my first deal. I still have that property, and
you were 26?
learned so much. By that time, I was probably 27, 28.
Great. Okay.
So 2-unit, north side of Lancaster City. I remember settlement day. I went home, went to my new house. I sat on those steps, and I was like, man, this is my house. It's all mine. Just, everything else is smooth sailing. And it's just house hacking and not burr yet, but it was house hacking. I decided to live upstairs. I was going to rent out the first floor. I had a garage that I rented out, and I used half of that. I want to say my mortgage was like $450 a month, and my first floor tenant was paying about $400 a month. So everything was covered.
So all right, that's an awesome story. Like, fantastic. I want to drop a breadcrumb here for our listeners. I have had a lot of employees over the years. I mean, I used to have a property management company, and we had like 19 employees, and I worked at a private equity company and had a bunch of people working for me. And the bottom line here is this: the very best employees, almost to a T, were the ones whose parents were American immigrants. And I think that integration into our American culture, it's like you get the work ethic of, hey, we're going somewhere new, and we got to do whatever we got to do to make it work. And like, that's ingrained into you. And then on top of that, you get to be born in this country, and like, you're born into the culture. So like, you're part of it, but you still get that work ethic. And I mean, I think that's awesome. Number one. Number two, so many people, and I put myself in this category as well, when they're in their 20s, they think, man, by 30, I got to be a millionaire. I have to, or it's all over. Right. But in reality, you could screw up your whole life in your 20s, and by the time you're 35, everything's fine. So it's like, it's the time to experiment and try new things and donate 2 years of your life, into this entrepreneurial program. And like, I'll bet you that there are things that you took away from that program that you could have never come across, or it would have cost you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to the decision point where you're like, oh, eureka moment, I should have known this from the start. But like, that's really awesome opportunities, and what a great way to get started.
So that's a very good point. That's what I was going to talk about. Working for that entrepreneur, I was there for 6 years total. A lot of people would come to us, they'd have an idea, and they'd be all over the place. Everybody's my customer. Maybe it was the contractor that wanted to build houses. What are you good at? Well, I do drywall, I do paint, I can do electric, plumbing. I was like, hey, scale it back, focus on what you're best at, find your niche. I never know how to say that.
Whatever.
Find your niche and be the best at, whatever that is. And so to me, I'm thinking, okay, I want to get into real estate. I'd been reading books like Russ Whitney, Building Wealth. I'd read the Carlton Sheets. I'd gotten the cassette tape program on buying properties with no money down. So I was reading a lot, and I was putting it into practice while I was working with that program. And after about 6 years at the nonprofit, I said, you know what, I want to go full-time into real estate. I just didn't know exactly how. I knew I wasn't cut out to be a realtor. I am not a salesperson. And I thought, okay, there's got to be a different avenue to get into this. And I was looking, I quit my job, and I had nothing at the time. Until I got I lined up a gig with a nonprofit. There was a program for other nonprofits to buy and renovate properties, homes, and turn around and sell them to first-time home buyers. So I got an agreement with a nonprofit organization. I said, hey, you get these 5 homes, I'll be your general contractor. So for a year, I was a general contractor. I had a minivan, I got insurance, and made some minivan insurance and a license. And I had a bunch of contacts just because of the program that I was with. And so we renovated 5 homes in a year. That's not a big number for any contractor, but for me, they gave me a shot at it, and it was a great experience. At the same time, that wasn't enough to pay the bills. I got a job at a property management company. I said, you know what? I have a temperament that's good for management. I don't get too high, don't get too low. That's kind of, a property manager, that's a good fit. So I took a job with a little company in Lancaster City doing property management, and my salary was awful. I mean, it was probably, I want to say half of what I had made at the nonprofit. But what it lacked for in compensation, it was just a huge learning experience. I worked with good people. I was managing a couple hundred units. I worked with investors that had maybe 1 or 50 units. And I was just seeing, just kind of landlording on a larger scale. At that point in my life, I had about 10 units. And I thought, okay, I need to get up to 100 or something until I can be self-sufficient. And to manage 200, it kind of gave me a picture that, number one, my fear was that you have that many, what if people don't pay? Well, we had about 200 units. And that first week, most everybody did pay their rent. Yeah. And the problems that came up through property management, whether it's a leaky roof, electrical problems, tenant issues, they're all solvable. You can fix all of those most of the time with a phone call or a check or just talking to somebody. And it's not this, people think of landlording as, oh, you're getting calls at 2 a.m. about a toilet. In 20 years, I don't think I've ever had a toilet issue. Maybe once in 20 years that somebody in the middle of the night had some kind of issue. It's not like that. So I worked for that little company for about a year, making very little, but the experience was just, that really just opened my eyes to real estate. And I said, this is something I can do. I just got to figure out a way to get to enough units.
Yeah. So
I moved on to that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, my question, I had a very similar eureka moment when I was in property management, right? Where you're looking at your monthly expenses and then you look at where you want your life to be, and you calculate those monthly expenses, and then you back out, all of the overhead and management, all the other stuff in a cash flow property. And it's like, man, I'm going to have like 400 properties or, some ridiculous number that at the time you might have 10 properties, but those 10 properties, like you worked hard to get there, and you're looking around and you're like, I got to multiply this by like 10 or 20 times. How am I going to do that? What was the number for you? And like, what did you get? When did you get to the point where you're like, oh, this is actually the number? Or, can we talk about that?
The number kept changing. I had a spreadsheet that just kept, first I thought it was 25 or 30, and then it was 50. And I was like, really, it's still not enough. And so I eventually moved on to a commercial property management job, great job. And I just kept buying, and just, we had more kids, our expenses went up. So I was like, you know what, I got to keep working. I have to keep working my 9 to 5, but I got to keep doing this on the side. I enjoyed my jobs, but I didn't love them. And real estate was it was kind of an insurance thing for me. If my job didn't work out, I could fall back on this real estate and really, really hustle at it. But for a while I thought, let me keep working at my jobs and seeing if I can, advance, get better. But I come to realize that, I love doing, being my own boss more than I liked working for somebody else. But that number, where I had to get to just kept creeping up. I think 100 was where I thought it needed to be eventually. Yeah.
Well, okay. So then, when did you make the decision? Like we talked about this before the show. Like talking units is
Yeah.
kind of stupid.
No, I don't need it. No. I don't. Yeah. And really, the numbers that can be different for anybody. And
Sure.
you have to decide what you want to put into it. I did not want to be rehabbing or, using tools and fixing things. I just wanted to be the manager. And so my number was a certain number. And I got there. I remember hearing somebody say, figure out where you want to be in 10 years and get there in 6 months or a year. I knew where I wanted to be in 10 years. It took me about 11 years to get there. And around the year 11, it was just because I was hustling in real estate and I found a couple really good deals that turned it around for me. And I was at the point, I think, where I said, I can leave. And I went to my employer and I said, I think I'm ready to go. But it was hard to the thought of leaving that paycheck, that every other week paycheck. Is like, what? It's a nice security blanket. So I went to my employer and I said, what? I'm really trying to work at my real estate gig, but I liked my job. I sort of liked it. Would you consider letting me work half time? And he said yes. Yeah. So for the next 2 years, I worked half time. I got it provided me health insurance, and I was able to do both. And then after 2 years, I was like, what? That's enough of this. Let me just focus on what I love. And there's something about, you can only, what is it about serving two masters? You'll hate one and love the other. And, I thought, let me be fair to my employer. I need to let somebody else do that job. It's a good job for somebody that really loves it. Let me focus on what I love doing. And so I probably stayed on 3 or 4 more years just because of that.
Well, right. I want to, and then I'm going to shut up and let Judah talk because I've been talking over him the whole show. Sorry. You did something there that a lot of people are afraid to do with their employer, right? You let them know, hey, listen, things are changing in my life, and like this is the direction I want to go in the future, but I kind of need some training wheels. And you didn't say it like that, but what he heard was, I'm at risk of losing a really solid employee, and he wants to stay to a limited extent. I want to get as much from him as I can because he's a good employee. Like, we want to keep him. So he wants to go half time. It's going to save me a little bit of money. I may not need to, I'm going to get to hire somebody else, but I'm going to be able to keep this guy. And when he's ready to leave, at least I can hire his replacement and he can train them for a while until he's ready to go. Like, as an employer, that's what he's hearing. When you're just sharing, hey, look, this is where life has taken me and things like that. And like, it ends up being a really great relationship. And I'll bet you could call this guy up or this woman up anytime and have a conversation and talk about business or whatever. And they're going to pick up your call. I mean, like, that's a great way to.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a win-win, and they hired a great person, and everything worked out perfectly. So I couldn't complain. But there's something about just being open and talking. Correct.
That's right. Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you really did what we talk about here on this show is taking the lessons you have learned from working in and around real estate and in your 9-to-5 job and having that make you be a better real estate investor. The one benefits the other. Bruce Barlard, do you know Bruce? You've got to have met Bruce over the years. He was my business partner and mentor for a long time. He and I owned a mortgage company together. When I realized, I need to have a job, I took my money from real estate and started a mortgage company. That was like in 2006. That went great for a couple of years. And then these two guys named Dodd and Frank came along and ruined the mortgage industry. But Bruce was the reason I got started with Bruce is he said, I've always found being a better investor helps me be a better lender, and being a better lender helps me be a better investor. Johncey, would you say that commercial and residential property management has helped you be a better investor, and being a better investor has helped you be a better commercial and residential property manager? Would you say that they kind of fed each other that way?
I think so. I could have, when I left that nonprofit, I could have just gone 100% into real estate and just started buying and being really aggressive. And stuff was super cheap back then. I think I'd be doing okay, but I learned a lot just by working with really smart people. When I was at Horst, the owners there, were terrific, and they had 50 years of experience as developers, as owners of commercial properties, and you could do nothing but learn from those guys. And so I thought to myself, if I can take what I learned from these guys and just apply it to what I want to do in residential urban development. I was managing Class A office space, and I thought if I could manage in the same way in a lower income setting, I want to do something good in the city. And that's, I took everything I learned both, from that commercial management, and also when I worked at the hospital in the city. I just took a lot of good experiences and tried to, to use that learning and to be a better investor. Yeah.
What kind of properties did you invest in initially, and what kind of properties are you investing in now? I mean, as far as grades, you don't have to talk about location and stuff, but just
sure. Yeah. Initially, it was just simple 2 units, single family residences. My first one, multi-unit, was just a 5-unit. That was a fire restoration job, and so it gave me some experience in contracting with contractors, but it was just small, little stuff here and there. What I like to call, or what I've heard, cookie cutter, bread and butter, just simple, modest 3-bedroom, 1-bath, starter row homes. Things that are easy. I've found over the years that the more complicated, or I have one older Victorian building. It's a historic building. Anytime we do any type of work at that building, it is super expensive. It's complicated and it's work and it's a headache. Now that building is doing fine, but the easier ones are just the basic, 3-bedroom row homes.
I always tell people buy boring stuff. I love townhouses.
The more boring, the better.
I've always loved townhouses, and what's great about Lancaster County is there's just a bunch of townhouse communities. I love buying those things. I think they're amazing to own. I think that a lot of people buy them as starter homes, and then they end up either needing someplace bigger, or they get divorced, or job transfer, or something like that. There's all kinds of reasons why people have distress after buying those things, and they've usually leveraged them to the hilt. And I've always loved subject to. Still to this day, my favorite way of buying real estate is subject to. And so those have always been the thing. And I tell everybody, buy boring real estate. It's just the best way to invest. Is most of your stuff Lancaster County, Johncey, or what's your footprint?
So my niche is Lancaster City. So everything I have is in Lancaster City. So that's what I specialize in. It's mostly low, middle income housing all over the city. How did you ride out?
Go ahead, answer. Finish that question. I intentionally, but then answer. How did you ride out 2008 to 2014?
2008, I felt like nothing happened. People still needed to live somewhere. I did not have high-end homes. These are just regular homes that people had to live in. And I want to say it was no different. I was not trying to sell anything. I was just trying to keep rentals occupied. And there was no difference in those years. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. I know people had, vastly different experiences there. I had a whole bunch of D quality properties that I found out that they were actually D quality properties. They were performing like C and B quality properties because we were in a great economy before that. But when the wheels came off, and that's just my caution to people today, is still like D quality properties are going to become D quality properties again. And there's places where you can buy A, B, and C in cities and focus on those. And war zones are going to become war zones again.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what are you doing now? How can we help you? How can we get the word out and have people ringing your phone off the hook with, discounted properties that they got to sell you and hand over and sign deeds over to you?
Hey, I'd love to be, I love looking at deals. There are a lot of people out there that are doing the same thing. And so, I'm like, let them have it. I'm not as aggressive at this point in my life. Yeah. I've got enough units. So I am more trying to figure out, how do I transition from an owner operator to just being an owner? and finding an operator. And maybe the solution is just finding a property manager, but I feel like I have about 5 more years left in me, and then I'm going to turn it over to somebody. So if I find a great deal, I'll do something.
You manage everything yourself, right? And you don't even have any employees?
Well,
I don't.
You know what you need? You need somebody like you 20 years ago that's hungry, wants to get into real estate, is willing to mortgage the next 20 or 2 years of their life to like catapult them into the industry. I mean, and it sounds like if somebody was that person and they were thinking about how can I get involved in real estate, knowing that, hey, look, I'm probably gonna have to sacrifice some income to learn this stuff, you guys could really help each other. I'm just saying, it's somebody out in the audience.
And I'll tell you what, I continue to listen to podcasts, and I love talking to new investors because a lot of times they have really good ideas that sometimes you get set in your ways and you don't think differently. And I find that young investors often have super ideas that
it's why I run the meetups that I do. It's why I run the meetups that I do. It's why I do all the things that I've always done. Is I love helping new investors. Hey guys, I got to jump in like 2 minutes, but I want to end on a personal note here, Johncey. I have 4 kids who are 14 through 8. How many kids do you have, and what ages are they? And maybe that's your succession plan right there, my friend.
3, 21, 18, and 14. So,
dude, get that 21-year-old to work. Dude, I mean, especially if you want to work for another 5 years, you got to say, hey, buddy, look, this is all going to be yours someday. Let's make it happen.
You haven't met her, but and my second one wants to teach math, and that's fine. They all have their own dreams. And I keep telling them, you know what? It doesn't matter if you've got a great job. Real estate's a nice just side option. It's a nice retirement plan. If I didn't go whole everything into this, I still would have been happy to have like 3 or 4 units. And my plan was to buy one and have it for them when they're ready for college. It's paid for. And for me, it's just, if I had a job that I loved, I might have just kept at that and just kept doing real estate on a small scale. But I think it's for anybody. Anybody can do it in some capacity. You just have to find out, how you want to do it.
Yeah. Hey, we got to wrap up and close, Josh. I got a settlement that I got to get to.
All right, wonderful. Guys, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back here at noon tomorrow covering all the real estate news of the week. Thanks so much for joining us. And Johncey, really, thanks for being here.
Don't hang up, Johncey.
You're welcome.
Well, see you guys soon. Have a good day. Go make some money.